Hey everybody, this is Anita with The Ripple Effect, and today, this is episode 20 of my podcast, and today I want to talk about habits. So I've been reading Atomic Habits by James Clear, and this book, I got to tell you ladies, it's been a game changer for me. So I want to break down a couple of things. One chapter that I just read, my son and I have been going through this material and reading Atomic Habits, and something just really clicked for me today as we've been reading through this. So we've been reading the chapters and implementing each of the elements of setting new habits and breaking old habits and all that kind of stuff. And the author, I'll put a note in the a link in the show notes to be able to buy the book if it's something that you're really interested in. But I really want to talk about this process of being able to form new habits and break old habits. And something that really resonated with me today is so much of us in the corporate space and those that have been in business and have had a certain degree of success in our lives, we've been around smart goal planning. We've been around what it takes to be able to build new habits. And we've heard for so many years that it takes 21 days to build a habit, or it takes 66 days to build a habit, or it takes 30 days to build a habit. And we've taken all this information in, oftentimes from other authors and other perspectives. But this author, James Clear, has a different perspective that I want to talk about today, and specifically as it relates to those of us that want to build profitable businesses and are ready to make that shift to do something different. And just as a way of reminder, we have a community of like-minded women who are corporate women of faith who have an idea for a God-sized business, and they want to be able to build a profitable business around that idea. And so those of us that are in that area, we call it the Shift community. It's an area where as women, we can be dream launchers for one another and cheerleaders for one another, and really genuinely ladies of faith who are using wisdom to build profitable businesses and be able to pour into our family, live intentional lives, go and do the ministry options that we love to do. That's what the Shift community is all about. So just a quick little plug for the community that we're building. If that's something that you're interested in, I'll also put a link in the show notes to my website that you can join our community or just find out more, whatever you like. So let's get back to the topic of today, and that is habits. So in habits, as I mentioned earlier, there's this concept that, and it's just a perspective. I'm not saying it's right or wrong or anything like that. What I'm noticing is that my perspective has been radically shifted today, and I love that. And that's what I want to share with you. So in the past, what I believed is that there's all these day markers in terms of building habits. And so, like I mentioned, there's either a 21-day habit, a 30-day habit, a 66 days to build a new habits. And we've gotten a lot of this information in our culture. And again, it's not bad information. But today what I read in Atomic Habits it's radically shifted my perspective just enough to make a difference. And here's what I want to talk about. So in this chapter, this is actually chapter 11 that he's talking about in Atomic Habits. He talks about the difference between when we're building our habit and being able to make it easy is kind of the section heading. He talks about the difference between motion and action. And so here's what I want to kind of break down for you and how the author describes it real quickly, and then I'm going to put this into practice for us. So the difference between motion and action, and initially, like I did, you may be thinking, gosh, those sound like the same things. What's the difference? So motion, the definition of motion that the author uses is when we're talking, planning, or strategizing. And we think yeah, Anita, I'm doing those things. I'm in motion in my business. I'm in motion in my job. I'm in motion in trying to create a business on the side as a side hustle so that I can break away from the corporate space. But I do all these activities, or I think about these activities and I do all these activities, or, I kind of plan or strategize. Maybe sometimes you need more information. Maybe, as we've talked about in previous videos, where you want to go do something different. Maybe you're in a corporate space as a project manager or a consultant, and you want to be able to build a business as a coach. And so maybe there's a real element where you do need to get more information and you're kind of in an education mode. That can be okay. We just don't want to stay in that mode is really the underlying statement that I'll say there. Then the other element of that, what he talks about, is actually being able to build habits around an action. So the definition, excuse me, of an action that the author talks about is behavior that delivers outcome. Okay, so if we have motion over here, and that's where we're thinking and planning and strategizing and talking about our ideas, that's great, but it's actually the action. So that's the behavior that delivers the outcome that's actually going to make the difference altogether. So the premise of Atomic Habits is you're building these habits, you're putting into practice all the things that the author is mentioning, but you want to be able to create the habit that says, like, I'm actually going to go through and follow through on what I want to. And that requires actually action. In order to make a change in our life in any way, shape, or form, we actually are required to do something about it. It's like where the Word of God says, like, don't just be hearers of the word, be doers of the word. Like, God even wants us to be able to take scripture and not just read it and pray over it and meditate and think about it, but he wants to actually have us be doers of the word and be taking what love looks like and putting that out into the world, like having that be something that I do differently because I understand it so much. So if we come back to this concept of putting our habits into action, because that's really what we're talking about. It's taking those new habits and putting them into action so I have a different outcome. So then I started thinking, gosh, what a difference this has made in my business. So let me just kind of pause right there and I'll finish this hot thought, the difference between motion and action. And this is where it was a game changer for me. When I started to understand in my own business, as I was building my business in my early years, I was busy, really, really busy. Right? In our world today, we call ourselves, we're like, things are crazy busy. Your girlfriend's like, hey, how you doing? I'm doing great, but I'm crazy busy, right? We string together these words that were never meant to be strung together, but that's kind of the pace of life these days, is that we're doing all these things. And I can look back, and as I was reading this today, I was reflecting back and thinking, early on when I was starting my business, I was thinking about things, I was planning about things, I was strategizing about things, I was talking about things. Now, I'm a thinker by nature. It's part of my personality style. It's one of the things, like, I'm a critical thinker. It's one of the things that I feel like I do really well. It is one of my secret weapons. But when I only get stuck in my head and only get stuck in the talking and consuming information and planning and strategizing and taking in more, like in that consumer mode, but I don't actually put it into practice, that's where I get into trouble. And so as I look back over my business and I started to think about the next episode in the podcast, it was like, wait a minute, how many other women are struggling with the same thing? That as we want to build businesses, we don't want to necessarily just be busier for busyness sake. And what I would say, if over the years, if I could take the years of my business building experience and be able to condense it down for somebody else and say, stop spending time over here and switch gears and start spending time over here, this would be one of the many things that I would share with my, and I do with my coaching clients, is being able to say, stop with all the thinking and planning and talking and just do. Now, we already do that way. I do a coaching program where we walk through this. I have a 6-step blueprint that walks through the very prescriptive method that it takes to be able to build a profitable business, an online business based on your God-sized idea. But if we take this even one step further in the form of habits and be able to say, okay, so in every way and every day, what's the behavior that I'm doing that delivers the outcome? So let me go back to the book and then I'll jump ahead to some business stuff. The author goes on to describe in Atomic Habits, behavior happens, like it's the volume of behavior that actually gets us to build the habit together. So for instance, if I'm going to go and create podcast episodes, if I'm going to go and create social media posts, if I'm going to go and create something, if I'm going to go out and attract more clients and have more conversations, it could be any one of those areas that I do in my business. I actually have to do the steps that it takes to be able to have the outcome that I'm looking for. And so let's kind of break those down. If I want to be able to create more podcasts, so many times we can get hung up on, I got to watch this guy on YouTube. There's like Pat Flynn, who's like the podcast guy on YouTube. He's phenomenal. But I can get sucked in to consuming all of his content before I produce my first podcast episode. On the element of producing videos, this can apply to podcasts or any social media as well. I can get hung up on the kind of camera that I use and the microphone that I use and the phone that I use or the script that I use or whatever. I can get caught up in all of those things. And instead of doing the action of creating the content to serve my audience well, I can get caught in thinking. Now, what I'm not saying is just go ahead and shoot everything from the hip and don't do any planning. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is once the planning's done, so we kind of encapsulate the planning and the thinking and the strategizing and the talking, but then we put it into practice and we do something with it. That's really the key takeaway here. So what other areas of the business? If I want to be able to attract more clients, well, then I need to be able to put myself in scenarios where other clients are, whether that's in an online space, a virtual space, a face-to-face, whatever that looks like. Actually, I have to physically get out of my office that's around me if I'm doing it physically and face-to-face. And I got to go out and do that. I want to be able to get out of my house and get out of my office and go and do those kinds of things. What else do we talk about? If I want to be able to build a new funnel in my business, if I want to be able to write more copy for my business, for sales letters or something like that, like I have to go from the planning mode to the actually doing mode. One of the examples that the author uses in the book is, if I'm going to be a writer, excuse me, if I'm going to be a writer and I write 12 outlines of topics that I might write an article on, that's considerably less effective of actually taking action on the behavior than if I just sit down and write one article and publish the one article. And so see how the difference in there, there's kind of like a nuance between the motion, the activity over here, where we're crazy busy, by the way, versus the action. I will also include that I would bet that as you start to take action, I just was connecting this together in my mind as I was thinking here. As I start to take action that delivers the outcome that I'm looking for, that makes a difference, it can be in my marriage, it can be in the way that I think, it can be in the way that I talk, it can be in my business. This can be applied to any single area of your life. This concept that we're talking here about taking action in our habits. If I want to be successful in any of those areas, don't you know that I have more of a peace when I do that? When I take the thinking, this craziness over here, and then actually put it in action and do the steps, I know for me and my business and for just what I've experienced in life is that that's where the peace comes in. That's where the satisfaction comes in. That's where I feel like, okay, Lord, I'm doing this. You've given me the vision of what I'm supposed to do in my business, and now I'm actually walking it out. Now I'm actually putting the steps in place. Now I'm actually, I don't know, for me, like I'm all about systems in my business. So I'm building the system, and then we're actually doing the steps of the system. Or I'm creating content and actually producing the content that leads to satisfaction and lines up with my goals. And all those other kinds of things. Like that's when I really reflect on what he's talking about here and think of my own self and my own journey that I've been on in being an entrepreneur and being just a homeschooling mom and a wife and a mother and all the things that I'm called to be and enjoy being. That's actually when I have the most peace. When I'm executing on the tasks that I'm called to do, the simple tasks, instead of making the things like big in my mind and making it more, frankly, sometimes more into a problem than just being, the solution provider, then that's actually when I have the peace to go and when I'm doing the things that God's called me to do. And then when I have the peace and I feel like I have satisfaction is the word that comes to mind, but it's really like that. It's that feeling of I set out to do a goal and I went and did it. And then the rest of the day, I'm like, oh, I have a peace because the things that I laid out to do today, I actually got done. And so now I can go have fun. And I don't have to worry about it all day long. Gosh, should I do the task that I said I was going to do? I think about it. I'm up in the middle of the night. I keep thinking about it. And my brain's constantly working of, I have this thing that I need to do, but and the more that I think about it, the more that I'm afraid to do it. Oh my gosh, you guys. Like the revelation that's unraveling right now and being able to take in my habits, excuse me, and take that behavior and put it into action so it delivers the outcome that I'm actually looking for in all areas of my life. It's like a game changer to just acknowledge that and share that with you guys today. So I hope that blesses you as we talk about this. And let me just kind of recap because we went through a lot, but it was very prescriptive in the way that I went out. Number one, we talked about the just different perspective of habits take a certain amount of days on a calendar as opposed to steps of action lined up in a row. And that's really what this is all about. It's the repetition of building those. He even talks about it in the book, and we know this from science. It's building those neural pathways in your brain that develop the habit. That's what happens. That's how a habit gets developed, is your brain sees the pattern of you're doing something over and over and over and over again. Then we also broke down the difference between motion and action. Motion, this is just the way that I see things. On one side over here, I can be like crazy busy. I'm thinking, I'm doing, I'm planning, I'm thinking about a lot of things, but it also creates an element of, for me, it creates an element of like stress and fear, sometimes overwhelm, because I get stuck thinking and I'm prone to be like awake in the middle of the night trying to problem solve, when what I really just need to do is come over here and just put the actions into place that deliver the results that I've already mapped out in my goals. Like, I'm excellent at goal planning. I know how to do these kinds of things. I know you do too, especially if you've been like raised in the corporate environment. You know how to goal plan. But don't we know, even in that space, that we have to have action that goes along with the goals that we've laid out. Otherwise, we're just talking about it, and that's just a dream. So then when we put things in action, this is the third part of it, it leads to peace. That we've been able to actually accomplish the goals that we set out, the tasks that we set out for that day. And that actually gives me such a sense of peace and such a sense of accomplishment that I did the things that God's shown me for today. For me, ladies, don't you know, oftentimes, like, I can see when I wake up in the morning, I can see like 20 to 100 things I could be doing each and every day. And I always ask God, like, Holy Spirit, can you just show me, like, what are just the 3 things that have to get done? I usually ask 1 to 3 things that I got to do today. Because otherwise I get overwhelmed and then I get stuck and then I don't do. And I want to be able to take steps towards my goal each and every day. Success is like that. Earl Nightingale says it's the progressive realization towards a worthwhile goal. That's the definition of success. So as you walk away from this video today, this podcast episode, I'm hoping that you're actually seeing the action steps and how important they are for you to be able to take. So I'd love to be able to hear from you. What is it that you need to take action on that you've just been waiting on? Or you just need some encouragement? Like, message me. Let me know. If you want more information on the community, you can go to my website. That's the Ripple Effect with an A, therippleeffect.net. If you want more information on the 6-step blueprint that I mentioned in this podcast episode, you can go to that as well. I'll put a link down on the bottom. It's a free resource that you can use to be able to create your own profitable business. If you want to engage and just have a conversation, then go ahead and message me. I'd love to be able to connect with you. Comment on the videos. Talk to me about what actions you're taking to be able to move your business forward. And so I just want to bless each and every one of you today with this podcast episode. Just know that I'm always praying for you, and I'm your biggest cheerleader. And I'm looking forward to meeting you soon.